Hi, just wanted to record another video for you. As we've been working through the Laments, I've been asking you to reflect a little bit about how you can use Laments in your communities of faith and in your personal life and what you've personally gained from them. I want to share a little bit about why I actually use so many Laments in this class. When I was working on my PhD, I had some struggles and some certain things were going on in my life that were really hurtful and hard and difficult. And I remembered exactly the moment when I really needed to find the lament psalms. I was doing this really small, tiny word study off of a couple of words in Exodus 15, and I kept finding all of these links back to some of the psalms that we've looked at this semester, like Psalm 77, Psalm 118 that we're going to look at this week. But I remember Psalm 77 in particular and how it started out with this person who was completely desperate and worried that somehow God had changed. And I remember at the moment I was having this personal crisis, and I can even remember driving around in my car just angry and upset and asking God why was this happening. There it was. I saw it in writing in the Psalms, and that literally changed the way that I prayed. And I recognized that in these lament psalms that we had options as persons of faith, because I've asked you, is it worse or is it or not to be a person of faith and then to have these doubts and have hard things happening? And at some level, if you've grown up in a certain environment, Brueggemann captures this environment well in his article on the costly loss, where you only hear positive messages, where you only hear things like God is good all the time God is good, which is true, by the way. However, if you never have that balance with the sense that what do you do when it feels like God isn't good? Or what do you do when everybody around you seems to be blessed, but you aren't? And then you just keep hearing that God is good, that ultimately becomes oppressive to us. As a pastor, as a prayer, as a father, as a husband, as a son, all those, we get in these circumstances where sometimes we're desperate for God to act, and we wonder what's going on. And the Psalms help us that. Plus, I'm going to do another video when we talk about the Psalter as a prayer book for God's missional people. But the bottom line is ultimately we're going to need the laments at some point in our life, and also we need to help the people that God has called us to serve, to recognize and find in these laments resources to help them when they're desperate for what only God can ultimately provide. Again, we just finished looking at Psalm 73. That's one of my favorite psalms. And notice it's that centerpiece. Brueggemann makes a big deal out of the psalm in his book in terms of how the Psalter is structured, but it makes sense. Notice how it starts off. Truly God is good to the upright. Or truly God is good to his people is the idea. But as for me, my feet almost slipped. And then he talks and goes through that. So the guy starts with a theological affirmation of truth. But then the psalmist recognizes that that truth doesn't really resonate in his or her life and goes in this existential crisis. But the psalmist encounters the living God. And that changes his life. And notice nothing in his life actually changed except the perspective that he brings to his circumstances. And then by the end of the psalm, the psalmist has made that opening affirmation about God being good a personal affirmation that now he's going to take to the world on mission. And that's ultimately what the laments will do. The laments will unleash you by allowing you to voice your deepest hurts, your deepest fears, your deepest concerns to God, who is big enough to hear our deepest hurts. Did you hear that? God is big enough and loves us enough to give us resources for our deepest hurts and to voice our deepest concerns, even our anger at God. When you get that, you know that you have resources and you can become the kind of person that God can send anywhere and that you can be light there and God will be with you. These will also open up help people in your communities of faith to open themselves up for God to really heal them at the deepest hurts in their life, because they'll find that they have resources to voice those deepest hurts. So don't miss working through these laments. And one of the blessings, one of the reasons I like to teach Psalms IBS is that these Psalms, it's almost like when you do your studies, and I know we have to work really hard, but at some level, the studying of these texts is extra special because in the midst of working really hard digging into these texts, we get to encounter the living God and we get to be transformed. These texts are almost they're self-ministering when we work through the Psalter. So again, I hope that gives you a sense of why I'm excited about the laments. Thank you all for your really good work this semester, and continue to work hard, and we'll enjoy the last couple of weeks of the terms as we continue to work through these wonderful texts that God has given us. God bless you. Let me know if I can help you in any way with your own work. Take care.